SpaceX is entering one of the most intense chapters in its history. After months of silence and increasing speculation, the company has finally released updated details regarding the schedule for Starship Flight 12. The announcement comes at a crucial moment, especially following the unexpected hardware incident that raised serious concerns about whether the next major test flight would be delayed for weeks or even months. In today's episode of SpaceX Saga, we're going to break down everything we know about the new timeline, what it means for SpaceX's 2026 goals, how this impacts the moon mission, and why NASA just handed Boeing's Starliner program another major setback. And if you're new here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to SpaceX Saga so you don't miss any future updates. Now let's dive in. The Flight 12 update finally revealed. SpaceX has now confirmed that Flight 12 remains targeted for the first quarter of 2026. This might sound reassuring on the surface, but the wording tells a deeper story. Originally, internal hints suggested a January launch, but after recent issues, the language has clearly shifted from confidence to caution. The reality is that Flight 12 is not just another test, it's the first V3 variant of Starship, featuring major structural and performance upgrades designed specifically for high-frequency launches and orbital refilling missions. That means the timeline must be perfect. Any small mistake could cause cascading delays. The FCC accidentally made the situation even more interesting. A leaked update to the communications license reveals a launch window beginning January 23, 2026, giving SpaceX a 6-month operational period. While this doesn't guarantee a January launch, it does confirm an important detail. Flight 12 cannot launch before January 23rd. Last year, SpaceX's Starship tests tended to occur very close to their FCC start dates. So, historically speaking, the end of January is realistic, but far from guaranteed. What the license confirms about Flight 12. The FCC documentation gives us several key insights that SpaceX hasn't openly stated. 1. It will be a suborbital test flight. Just like Flight 10 and 11, both stages will follow a suborbital trajectory. This may disappoint fans expecting an orbital mission, but SpaceX knows that the V3 upgrades need careful validation. 2. Booster and ship may return to the launch site or splash down. The wording leaves both options open. Most analysts believe SpaceX will choose a controlled splashdown for safety. Landing a brand new booster variant on the same pad could introduce unnecessary risk. 3. V3 is a critical stepping stone. This flight will determine whether SpaceX can move forward with orbital flights, payload deployment missions, and the long-awaited orbital refilling tests. Without Flight 12's success, none of these future milestones are possible. The impact of the Booster B-18. Explosion. On the development side, things got complicated after Booster 18 suffered a catastrophic failure during pressure testing. Losing a full booster at this stage is rare and extremely costly, not just financially but in terms of hardware availability. Fortunately, SpaceX has already begun stacking Booster 19, aiming to complete full assembly by late December. However, the timeline is tight. Historically, SpaceX boosters require 1 to 2 weeks for cryogenic testing, additional inspections after every test, and multiple spin prime tests before a full static fire. Even with a fast-paced schedule, this likely pushes Flight 12 into February or early March 2026. If everything goes perfectly, and that's a big if, a February launch is realistic, but a January launch now appears increasingly unlikely. The road to orbital refilling and why it's at risk. The Starship program isn't about individual flights, it's about proving the technologies needed for long-duration missions like the Moon and Mars, and one of the most important milestones is orbital refilling, the system that will allow Starship to deliver astronauts and heavy cargo beyond Earth orbit. Leaked internal timelines suggested refilling would begin in June 2026, but if Flight 12 slips into February or March, the math just doesn't work. To reach refilling readiness, SpaceX still needs to perform an orbital launch, successfully separate the stages, demonstrate payload deployment, land both booster and ship reliably, and launch multiple tankers in rapid sequence. Completing all of this between March and June would require a launch roughly every 3 to 4 weeks, something SpaceX has never achieved with Starship. Even Elon Musk has hinted that rapid cadence will take more time. So again, June 2026 looks overly optimistic. Why Blue Origin is quietly gaining ground. This is important. While SpaceX has been dealing with hardware issues, Blue Origin has quietly accelerated work on New Glenn, Blue Moon, and their lunar lander systems. For the first time in years, Blue Origin appears to be closing the gap. They're building faster, testing more frequently, and aiming directly at NASA's moon missions. If SpaceX slips too far behind, NASA may increase pressure or funding on Blue Origin to ensure at least one lander is ready by 2028. The space race is no longer one-sided. SpaceX must stay ahead. Starliner. Another critical update. Now let's shift to Boeing because NASA just made a major decision that changes everything. Boeing's Starliner program has been under pressure for years. After repeated delays and failures, NASA has now revised the commercial crew contract, reducing Starliner's 6 planned crewed missions down to only 4. And even more shocking, the first Starliner 1 mission will be cargo only, no astronauts. NASA wants to minimize risk and ensure all systems work reliably before putting crew on board ever again. The earliest possible launch date? April 2026, and that's if everything goes perfectly. NASA officials explain that Starliner thrusters are still undergoing rigorous testing, and certification remains uncertain. This is a significant embarrassment for Boeing, especially considering the massive funding difference. Boeing received $4.2 billion, SpaceX received $2.6 billion. Yet SpaceX has completed multiple successful crew flights, while Starliner has yet to complete even one. If the cargo flight fails, NASA may decide to limit Starliner to cargo-only missions permanently, and with the ISS expected to retire around 2030, Boeing is running out of time. The bigger picture. Why 2026 is a make-or-break year. When you step back, you can see why everything is so interconnected. Starship delays push the moon mission further out. Moon delays increase pressure on NASA to back alternative landers. Starliner problems force NASA to buy additional SpaceX Crew Dragon missions. Blue Origin gains leverage every time a competitor slips behind. The next 12 to 18 months will determine the entire direction of American spaceflight into the 2030s. SpaceX is still in the lead, but the gap is narrowing. What we should expect next. If you want to track progress, here are the next major signs to watch. 1. Booster 19 static fire test. This will confirm whether the V3 engine upgrades are performing as expected. 2. Ship 39 rollout. If Ship 39 appears on the launch mount early, the timeline is on track. 3. New FAA filings. These always appear 2 to 6 weeks before a launch date. 4. More construction activity at Starbase. Rapid hardware movement usually means accelerated scheduling. If these 4 things align, we may still see a February or March launch. That's all for today's deep dive into SpaceX's next Starship launch, the future of orbital refilling, and NASA's latest decision impacting Boeing's Starliner program. The next few months will be absolutely critical, and here at SpaceX Saga we'll be covering every update the moment it happens. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to give this video a like. It helps the channel reach more space fans around the world. And if you haven't already, subscribe to SpaceX Saga for the most accurate, fast, and real-time updates on SpaceX, NASA, and the future of human spaceflight. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, stay inspired, and as always, keep looking up.